Welcome to Rush the Field. Thank you so much for taking the opportunity to watch this video. We're not a reaction channel here. Just telling you, if you're new, if you're returning, not a reaction channel. We did one for the college football trailer because obviously you got to do something for that. And that was me literally turning into a kid. I've only done that it reminds me with WrestleMania 40 when the Undertaker sound, that bell went off. I turned into a little kid, just pure excitement. The sparkle came back. The same thing happened with the college football video game and that trailer and the gameplay. That's not the point of this video. I'm not going down that rabbit hole because we'll be here for 40 minutes. We're not a reaction channel because, I just feel like it's an easy way to make content. But as we're building up this community, and listen, I don't have a lot of, I can go through the comments, but I want to be able to build up that base a little bit. And when we're talking about controversial opinions or something that I really disagree about, and it's the narrative or the soul of college football, and I'll explain that a little bit here in a second. I don't want to go through tweets. I don't want to go through certain avenues to show that opinion outside of a large media profile who encapsulates what I think some people see the sport. Because sometimes in my videos, I'll say, well, this person has this opinion, or this group of people have this opinion, and I'm not showing proof. And this is kind of the way I want to show proof of what I disagree with. And the one person I'm talking about right now is Colin Cowherd, which by every means, there's no disrespect to just Colin Cowherd or just directed at him, because a lot of people can share this opinion. And, I respect him for trying to talk about college football, even if that's not his main medium of conversation. And he brings on Bruce Feldman. We're going to react to a video. It's about 19 minutes long. We're not going to watch all 19 minutes. I just, like you guys, I consume content and I was watching it and I disagreed with a lot of things that was being talked about. And I think it's a good way for me to, stop after an opinion and have that conversation of what I disagree with. Because as we get in the off season, you kind of do a review of college football. And what he's talking about is, I think you start to lose what at its core makes college football so special, why people feel so passionate. It's like no other sport in America. In all honesty, I really, truly believe that. And they'll talk about the USC. We all know that Colin Cowherd's a big USC guy. So they talk about USC, Ohio State, and Colorado. So let's go ahead and dive in.
Feldman, writer of The Athletic, college football, Fox Sports. So let me restate my opinion, is that college football has been in transition, hyper-speed transition for about 18 months. Before that, it was in mild transition. And as I look at a team like USC that will now play on a regular basis at Penn State, in Ann Arbor, Columbus, while maintaining a game with UCLA, a rivalry game, in Eugene, in Seattle, at Camp Randall.
Okay.
Forget LSU off the schedule. Do I have to, with a stronger conference, more brutal road games, a 12-team playoff, a tougher conference championship, I'm kicking Notre Dame off the schedule?
Nope, you're not. You're not. Why? Because you don't want to have a tougher schedule? That is the lamest thing I've heard. I'm sorry. Notre Dame USC is a incredible all-time historic rivalry. You just don't kick that off the schedule blindly. At its core with college football, just blindly kicking off rivalries and losing that core part of the sport. We lost Oregon State. We lose these things. Oklahoma State. I disagree with it every single time. I truly do. I'm upset that Mississippi versus Mississippi State, or Ole Miss, whatever you want to say, the Egg Bowl, is not going to be played on Thanksgiving Day. Things like that bother me. You may say, oh my gosh, you're being a Karen. You're an old man yelling at the sky. I don't care. This is what makes college football special, is caring about these types of things. The little things that matter. We talk about, the new college football video game. The details matter. That's what makes the sport so special. So, of course, I'm going to care about those types of things. So kicking off Notre Dame, because he'll dive into it about it's too tough of a schedule. Shut up. Boo, tomato.
I heard you say that when I was getting mic'd up, and I was like, literally, that is blasphemous. It is honestly insane that you said. First of all, they're not getting all those teams every year.
That's right.
They're getting a rotation of some of those teams, okay?
So you only have to go to Columbus every other year.
Look,
That's
but also now there's
being in the Big
a 12-team playoff. You can go 9-3 and make the playoff, right?
Yep.
The idea that you would lose Notre Dame, like, by the way, is Keyshawn come in here every day? Because, like, I feel like he will punch you in the face. And everybody go, oh, why's Colin got a broken jaw? Well, because he said something just preposterous.
So you think it's preposterous?
I think that is, like, if you really wanted to protect, let's try to get undefeated or do whatever, you should have just joined the Mountain West.
Yeah, but USC is a huge brand.
Well, it won't be if
USC is a huge brand. If USC is such a big brand, they go to the Big Ten, they should be talked about like playing Ohio State, like playing Notre Dame, like playing LSU. Why should they get the easy road? They're a big dog. You just said they're a big brand. They got to go play with the big dogs. Florida's got to go play a gauntlet of a schedule in the SEC. They're a big brand. It's just how the sport works. You either rise above and you punch down, or you're going to have to spend your entire collegiate career punching up. Like, I don't get that logic. I truly don't. And honestly, the 12-team playoff and being in the Big Ten is going to benefit you more than going and being undefeated in the Mountain West. Because let's be 100% honest with ourselves. An 11-1 Sun Belt team, if say, for example, the last spot of the group of 5 goes to Tulane that goes undefeated, that 11-1 Sun Belt team is not getting in over a 9-3 Big Ten or SEC team, point blank period. People need to understand that now before they riot the streets. Appalachian State goes 11-1. They're going to lose their minds when they find out that a 9-3 Florida team that plays that tough of a schedule deserves to get in the playoff more. I disagree with that's how the systems should be, but that's how it's going to be. Accepting it now because that's the reality of college football. This is the new era of you are playing in these super conferences. You're going to get the benefit of the doubt. So whining and begging because you have to play a very difficult schedule because you're in a tougher conference without realizing that you're also going to probably get the benefit of the doubt at the at-large bid, unless you're just terrible and you're like 7-5. I just don't get the logic. Whining about playing a tough schedule in a bigger conference when you're going to get the benefit of the doubt seems just backwards to me.
we keep running off all the good teams.
I ran off the Beavers and the Cougars. I'm fine. But I inherited the Nittany Lions, the Buckeyes, Michigan, and then I got Oregon and Washington.
But you're not getting all those teams. You're getting like one. Like, look who their schedule is.
Look at this. I'm going to give you, because I like weather. I love weather.
Okay.
USC plays in warm weather. I just added Ohio weather, Michigan, Nebraska, Iowa.
You added football weather.
And I got stuck having to take Washington and Oregon weather. So I'm thinking to myself, do I need Notre Dame in November where it's 9 degrees in South Bend?
It's a rivalry game. Shut up. Sorry. Cool. The weather's been like that forever. The Pac-12's gone. It's dead. Were you either going to just be like Oregon State and Washington State and stay to the sidelines? Or were you going to go play across the country in the SEC in super hot weather, which I get at California also deals with the heat. But that's driving all the way across the country.
At some point, I want to take care of me. I could have a schedule.
You can take care of you all you want. You're not taking care of the USC football fans now.
Fans. You think they're not going to show up to the Wisconsin game at the Rose Bowl?
No, I think they will be there. But I think if, this is a program that prided itself on not playing any FCS or, power.
What do they get them? Alabama's out here scheduling roast beef tech and winning.
I won't disagree that Alabama has an easier non-conference because they only play 8 conference games. They also scheduled Wisconsin, and it should be getting better over the years, and they also play in a very tough SEC. I guarantee you if they play 9 conference games and a tougher non-conference schedule, they probably still win majority of those titles.
Natties. What did it get USC for being altruistic and thinking macro?
That's not what hurt USC. USC hurt USC. It's not that. Pete Carroll was doing fine when they were playing those schools and saying, "Hey, we're not playing UC Davis."
Good luck trying to find
Azusa
Pete
Pacific.
Carroll. Those guys are hard to find.
Oh, I don't disagree with you on that.
I have a belief in life. Duck the best opponents. It's almost a rule for me.
So why not go to the Mountain West then?
Well, because my brand's too big and I want to make money. So
your
USC,
brand won't stay that big if you keep ducking everybody.
I'm not ducking everybody. I'm now basically, here's what happened. I have a beautiful business.
Yes, you do.
And Microsoft and Intel and Meta and Facebook and they're the same thing. And they all moved into my neighborhood. And it's like, okay, now the temperature changes. I'm going to get rid of one of these alliances. At some point, the idea that because by the way, USC is now being punished because they have a national rivalry with Notre Dame. Ohio State doesn't have it.
How are they being punished though?
Because if you get rid of the game, Bruce Feldman's out there going, well, why don't you just join the Mountain West? And USC's saying, it's not our fault.
Bruce Feldman's saying, why don't you go to the Mountain West? Because you were crying. No, I'm not going down the road.
We have a legitimate top 10 program as a rival. It'd be one thing if Ohio State had Clemson as a rival. Or Michigan every year. Michigan used to have Notre Dame. What do they do in that game?
If you're Florida, like just use
Notre Dame, Michigan is not on the same level.
We can't play Florida State because now all of a sudden the SEC has gotten so good.
I think they should punt on that.
Man.
Well, I love college football. But at some point, Florida State, I want to win natties.
If you love college football, you want to keep that game because that is one of the most historic rivalries. And if you punt on all of it, like you're getting, because like I said, you're not getting the schedule that like Rutgers played, the last few years in the Big Ten East. You're not getting every year. You're not getting Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan on top.
You're not getting it every year. But I could see, I think it's one thing, let's say LSU, I think your Florida example is a great one. So Florida State's been hot and cold, Bobby Bowden, now they got the right coach. But at some point, if I look at my schedule, I'm like, oh, I got to play Texas, Oklahoma, and Georgia, and LSU. I don't want to play Florida State. Well, why am I getting...
First of all, Florida's schedule is not always going to be like 2024. And it will infuriate me if we start losing the Miami, Florida State trifecta and playing each other. College football is better when those three teams are playing each other on an annual basis. If we keep trying to justify the fact that we're in these super conferences and now all of a sudden all the non-conference rivalries are just meaningless because it's just too tough, I will genuinely fall out of love with college football. At its core, the non-conference games. And this is part of the reason why, like, when we talk about the regular season losing meaning, this is what I'm talking about. Because the hyperfixation on whether or not you make the playoff is demeaning the value of Miami playing Florida or Florida playing Florida State in a different, like two different conferences. And those games used to mean something major. And now we're potentially praying that they run into each other in the playoff. Like,
punished for this. No, and this is nothing against Notre Dame, but people have moved out of the Notre Dame game before. USC hasn't, but it's not just like I'm defending them. I'm saying if you look at how good the Big Ten is now, it's one thing for the SEC to just take Texas and Oklahoma. Well, Oregon is as good or better than Oklahoma now. Washington's as good.
Now.
Washington, in their history, when they get the right coach, is an elite program with Don James, Peterson, Rick Neuheisel. They were a top 10 team. Kalen DeBoer. So I don't know. I'm not anti-history, but I'm not paralyzed by it. How about we play them every third year?
We. You're not going to be allowed in the club when you say, yeah, because basically what that reads like is we're ducking Notre Dame.
Well, so what? I'd rather, you know what? You know who Michigan played out of conference this year? Bowling Green and UNLV and a Coastal Carolina or something. And they won a natty.
And we roasted them for it. And cool, they won a natty. But I think even if they played Notre Dame this year, they probably still win. Like, I'm sorry, it would have been a more entertaining season, but we talked about plenty at ad nauseum, all that mattered was that Ohio State game. And sometimes you're just going to have a weak non-conference. It's just how the sport works. If you want to roast the SEC about playing 8 conference games, that's fine. But I'm not going to punish a team. Like, it doesn't justify getting rid of Notre Dame. You're not paralyzed by history. I am for changing the sport and adapting, because it's a sport that has been paralyzed by the NCAA and its rules. But what makes it so special is the passion because of the history and tying yourself to that. That because of the rotation of players and coaches and the movement outside of the transfer portal, I'm just talking about the fact that you have usually a 4 to 5 year limit and you're going to rotate. That the passion about this sport and the programs and the attachment to it is more about that versus the players there. You love the players, you love the stories, but the rivalry, I'm always going to dislike Texas. I'll always be transparent on that. I'll be objective about them. They're a great team this year, but I'm always not going to like them, regardless of what player's on the other side, because it's just my favorite team is their big, like, rivalry is right there. It's just how the sport works, and that's what makes it special.
It wouldn't a natty if they played LSU and Georgia out of conference.
But if you get into the playoff again, you could be a 10-2 team. Maybe you'll be a number 6 seed. You can. I mean,
if I played Notre Dame in week 9 and got 4 of my players hurt.
Yeah.
And instead of being paralyzed by my former rivalries, how about create new ones? Michigan, USC, Oregon, Ohio State. They play this year in Eugene. Will be bigger than all their current rivalries. That Oregon, Ohio State, every other year in Eugene, or 3 years out of 7.
Will be bigger than the Michigan game?
No, that's the biggest game in college football. But that Oregon's biggest rivalry will be a Big Ten team, not a Pac-12 team. And that USC's biggest rival, because I think NIL really punishes UCLA. USC's biggest rival will end up being the Buckeyes or the Wolverines. That's the one that networks will fight over.
Biggest rivalry, like the biggest rivalry versus the most competitive game, are 2 different things. If you want to say Oregon's biggest game is going to be, of course, Ohio State, or who's the number 1 team in the Big Ten that they have on the schedule, fine, cool. That's what the networks are going to clamor for. Who cares what the networks want? I get it in the context. Colin Cowherd, obviously, Fox guy, he's going to care about it. Like, that matters to him. That it's the company that pays his bills, of course. But to the fans, why should we care about what the guys in suits are getting millions of dollars off of? Your biggest rivalry should not matter about the rankings, should not matter about who has what players. Alabama, Auburn, we saw how bad Auburn was last year. 4 overtimes. It was still the biggest game for Alabama. It's always going to be the biggest game for them. It's realistically, when LSU's really good, this is the best example, right? LSU and Alabama is still a rivalry, but it's usually the best game because the both are really, really good most times. And when they clash, it's a heavyweight fight. They're in the same division. That's a major game. Not discrediting that. Networks clamor for that game, or CBS usually did. The biggest rivalry is not going to be Alabama LSU ever. It's always going to be Alabama Auburn because it has the history. So saying these new rivalries is what's going to, ignore the Civil War, which everyone that you talk to about the Civil War talks about how big that game is to Oregon and to Oregon State. And that's what's heartbreaking about the Pac-12. And for Colin to say, well, it's always going to be the biggest game on their schedule. Obviously now things have changed, and that's heartbreaking. So I don't love the discredit of how big a rivalry is to a college football team comparative to what's projected to be the best game or the most impactful to the playoff. Just because that is a huge deal to the playoff doesn't outweigh the historical significance of the other game. That doesn't make sense to me. Okay, I saw enough. I didn't need to see any more. Listen, we could talk about Colorado, Ohio State again. It's at its core, the discredit of a college football rivalry should not be discredited. That's my point, man. I don't want this to be the narrative. I don't want someone to watch this and be like, yeah, that's correct. The historical significance has to matter at some point. Just because it's a more marquee game, it's going to get College Game Day, doesn't mean the rivalry game means any less. That's what makes college football special. That's what you and me care about at its core. That's why I fell in love with the sport. And I would be really upset if it just dies. But thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. Have a fantastic day. Welcome to Rush the Field.